What if all the challenges we face as a species, I mean, like there's so many labels and so many things and so much disease in our world, all came down to one single fundamental truth or one single fundamental condition, and that's the human condition. And if that we understood that fundamental condition at its core, what it is, you literally change everything from that.
Drums beat wild beneath the moon. Echoes rise in a primal tune.
We are unveiled, the human condition. What it means to be human. What is this all about? Like this whole human story and where we came from and where we're going, and 3D consciousness and 4D consciousness and 5D consciousness and 12D consciousness. Well, we don't go that far, but really, what is the human condition? Because that's the biggest mystery. That's why we're all here. We're all trying to figure out the same thing. And it's like, have we really figured it out yet?
No, we haven't. Because you see that more and more. We're confused. So there might be people who are like, what do you mean the human condition or something? Because it just feels like life's purpose is just to go to work, get a paycheck, come home, and maybe go on vacation once a year, right? And then that's what we look forward to. But there's more to it. And you see more and more people getting to this point in life where either like, you know, a midlife crisis or this period of time where they're like, something feels off. And so there's a lot of people going through that transition and the questioning of there's got to be more to this. Yeah. And that's really what we want to talk about. But first we have to understand like, what is fundamental to being human? What are those challenges that we all face? And that's something that we're not taught.
Yeah.
We're not having a lot of discussions about.
Yeah. Because most of the students that we have in the work we do that come to us are looking for that next step, that meaning, that discovery, you know, and that's really what we teach, and we focus on it on a very fundamental level. So here's a huge question, like, what if all the challenges we face as a species, I mean, like there's so many labels and so many things and so much disease in our world, all came down to one single fundamental truth or one single fundamental condition, and that's the human condition. And if that we understood that fundamental condition at its core, what it is, you literally change everything from that. You know, there's the Einstein saying, we cannot solve a problem from the same level of thinking that created the problem. And that's what we keep doing over and over and over again, is we keep trying to fix the problem. And we haven't even figured out what the underlying condition of the problem is. Mm-hmm. And that's the human condition. So we're going to talk about the human condition at a very fundamental level, and hopefully in a way that makes sense to like everybody. So we all understand we're all part of the same story, right? And so that story starts when we're first born. And when we're first born, we're in the field. Like we are in the energy field. Like all we see is energy. And you're like, how do you know that? How do we know all we see is energy? Because the very first thing we do when we come out of our mother's womb is we start to develop our five senses. I mean, we probably do in the womb because I have a memory in the womb, and it was just energy. And we'll probably talk about that in one of our later episodes. But as soon as we come out of the womb, what we're doing is we're developing our five senses. That's Jean Piaget, sort of childhood psychology 101. We're developing object permanence. And so if we have to develop the five senses, object permanence, then what are we before that? Development. We're energy. We're the field. It's just like what we call quantum intelligence. What everything's really coming from is this unified field of interconnected energy. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And so through every experience we have as an infant, and that's why when you see an infant, a little infant child, like send it love, send it like the most positive, beautiful energy, because they're picking up on your energy field, right? And like the worst thing we should do is like
argue in front of them,
or have them born in a hospital room where there's chaos and everything, because that's in
the most unnatural setting.
Yeah. Totally. And so that's the first stage of human development. And we'll talk about this consistently, the evolution of consciousness. But we're talking about the evolution of consciousness in terms of the individual human being here. And so the second stage of evolution, and by the way, that relates to the first chakra too. The second stage of our evolution is group, family, tribal belonging. So this is when we build the bond with, you know, the family, our siblings, our pets. And we're in this tribal belonging. right? You know that very well because you're a mother.
Yeah. It's like the babies were born, the kids are born, and they actually think that they are a part of the mother, you know? And then they start to understand, like, oh, I'm different. But there's an intrinsic, conditioned response that makes them understand that they need to be accepted by the family, right? They need mom and dad in order to survive. So that's an adaptation that means, like, we have to fit in with the tribe.
Yeah, tribal belonging.
Yeah.
And we see, this is nature consciousness too, by the way. So like if you go out and you're seeing like like mother and father goose on the ponds in the spring, which it is right now, you can hear the birds outside, and all the little ones with it. They're tribe. They're kind of doing their thing, and it's all about, you know, survival, developing those instincts and learning how to survive. But that's also where we develop emotions. So emotions aren't unique to human consciousness. Emotions are unique to nature consciousness, because that's where we develop that bond, right? And it's really important, because what we're doing is we're distinguishing how human consciousness is separate from everything else. And this comes with the third stage of development. So in nature, the second stage and that second chakra, everything is basically in balance and cohesion. Now, if you grow up in a not the best family situation and you don't have that strong tribal foundation, yes, you're going to have
some attachment disorders and different
all types of different things. Second chakra, sort of dysfunctional energy, right? So we need healthy family belonging. And if it's not there, we can always look at it like, oh, that's what we need to apply into ourselves or to other people later on in life, because they came from an unhealthy family structure. So let's bring them back to that tribal bonding. And you're focusing on the condition or the energy of where that dysfunction lies. But really the big one is the third stage of development. And this is like, this is where things get crazy.
Yeah.
This is where we become civilized human beings, like truly in our world. And that's when we see ourselves, and we talk about this all the time, when we see ourselves in the mirror and go, oh, that's me, and these are my things, and you're not the boss of me anymore, Mom, right? There's this like separation from the unity. Like there is a fragmentation that everything separates. Right? And that's when everything changes. The whole evolution of consciousness, we're no longer part of the unified field. We're part of the subjective objective awareness. That's what we develop at that third stage, subjective objective awareness, where we're seeing ourselves as separate from everything else in the world. We existed in wholeness. We were part of a bigger tribal structure and the connection, right? But now we're separate from everything else, and the world around us is all fragmented, and this creates the ego, and this creates the illusion of separation, and this creates the veil, because now our perspective of self and reality is based on a lens that's fragmented, and we're not connected to the source, to the field, to nature consciousness. We have our own egos being developed, and that's where all our problems arise. And so now our stress response system, our fight or flight system is like, oh, someone didn't like my post on Facebook, or you called me a name, or just something that's so rudimentary that's not really threatening our survival, then puts us in a stress response where we feel like victimized and
under attack. And then an important thing to note, though, is like once you get to that stage, it transcends and includes
the prior stages. We'll talk about that in the evolution of consciousness. Each stage transcends and includes the next. And
so in healthy development, like as a person is maybe finding that family belonging or tribal belonging, and then they start to develop their own ego, that is something that we'll talk about. It doesn't mean that then they completely reject or sever their ties to the family, because that would be a not functional thing.
Yeah. So it's important to have healthy development at each stage. Now, with the development of the ego and the self comes also the gift of this human experience, which is free will and self-expression, right? Like being able to create our own music, being able to create our own songs. I've had the honor and fortune of visiting true tribes in Ecuador and Peru. Like true, they're still in there. There's a little bit of influence, but very little. And there's no free will. Like they can't come home and like go out and learn some music and come back to the tribe and start playing completely different music, or start developing their own art, because as soon as they do that, they're no longer part of the tribe.
So they might develop art, but it's tribal art.
It's
right?
but it's their own tribal art.
Right.
Like they're creating the same tribal art as that culture and tribe has, and that's the meaning of the tribe. And it's also, huge point, it's feminine energy. It's cohesive, it's bonding, it's collective. But then the ego emerges and it's masculine energy, right? It's self, it's individual. It has the ability to sort of desire to achieve. That's where we get achievement and grow as individuals. That's masculine energy, but it's the first time in the collective consciousness of, like, you know, the world and everything that we see this self emerge. Well, it's capable of its own thoughts, knowing its own thoughts, knowing that it knows.
So on a society level, it's moving from that collectivist societies or communities to more the individualistic ones.
Matriarch to patriarch, right? And like, even with like, that's why we see in like more tribal cultures, like the belief systems on nature, you know, Gaia, you know, Earth, Mother Nature and all that. But then as soon as we see civilized belief systems, they're all about God and the man, power. Sun gods, exactly. Like sun energy is definitely civilization. Ra, we see that with Egypt and all that. It's all sun energy. And so that's the shift in our consciousness. And we see this collectively too. So like, well, that's getting more into the evolution of consciousness. This is all part of it, but we're just talking about the human condition. And so that development of the self and the ego relates to the prefrontal cortex of the brain, right? And that takes like, it fully develops at like 28 years old.
Probably getting, I mean, that's what they say, but probably it's getting to be longer. I don't think we're getting smarter as a species, but
yeah. So, but that plays a massive role in who we think we are.
Yeah.
Because we're developing our sense of self. We're always developing that, but really at that sort of neurological or that brain sort of way, that biological sense, it doesn't develop fully till we're 28 years old. But we think, oh no, I know who I am, I know the world. And that's why we have such struggles in those earlier years of trying to figure out who I am, my place in the world and all that.
And why people at 18 get tattoos that they regret at 30.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got nothing against tattoos, but we got to understand the evolution of consciousness. We're shifting and changing and evolving. So yeah, you put that tattoo of like your first girlfriend on your arm and you're just like, oh, how am I going to change that, right? Hopefully her name's Mona, so you could just change it to Mom. So from that point forward, now everything we're seeing is from the sense of this separate self and the fragmentation. So we're now creating this human story. And the human story is based, and this also relates to time and space. So that part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex that's being developed, that recognizes the difference between self and other, subject and object, also recognizes time and space.
And really, that's the essence of this whole human condition, is the fact that we emerge in our energetic beings and can read energy. And then it's the illusion of separation. So when we talked about like what if there is one root cause? And that's really it. It is the illusion of separation. Yep. This idea that we as individuals have like divided ourselves internally, like with our own psyche, when we're doing acts against ourselves, when we're not in alignment with ourselves, but also when we're out of harmony with our families, with our friends, our communities, when we're isolated, the division between us and nature. So it's this illusion that we have. And that's really what it comes down to, is that's the human condition. And then now in our world, because we have so much dis-ease, we're not in ease, and we have this illusion of separation going on, we have so many different conditions. We have so many different labels. So we clump these symptoms together and then decided that this must mean that you have this disorder or this disorder or this disorder, and therefore we will treat the symptoms, because they're clusters of symptoms, with this medication or this treatment or whatever. So it's really like I would like to say a lot of times, it's like playing whack-a-mole, because like the symptoms might come up and you might do a treatment, but until you get to the root cause of understanding the wholeness that you already are and what we came from, it's the remembering. Until you get there, then the symptoms are likely just going to pop up in some other way or form. So that's why this is so important, this conversation, and understanding this right off the bat before we start talking about anything else is like, it's so simple.
It is.
And yet, like, it affects everything. And we say, like, it's hard to see the ground we're standing on. We almost have to step back from our own condition to see it. Yeah. But, you know, those labels, like, they all, and, you know, they're part of their symptoms. They're part of the disease of the human condition. And when we identify with the labels, all we're doing is creating more fragmentation. So anything we, like, this identity of, like, who we think we are, who we believe we are, you know, the self, or like who we want to be in this and that, it creates this story and this sort of, you know, this image of who we are. And it's based in this vision of separation and division in time and space. So we're either like worried about the past or the future. We're not in the power of now. We lose connection with the power of now. Like, so that's why the power of now is so important. And so we become not just fragmented, but also in this fragmented realm of not being where we should be, sort of centered in the power of now. And so we create this story of our past, mostly, of fragmentation of what we were called or made fun of as a child, and the traumas and the disease and this and that happened to us. And yes, those are true events that shape how we see ourselves in the world. Shapes everything about us. Like, our whole view of ourself and existence is all shaped through our experiences in our lifetime, right? But they're concepts that we've created around these events. And that's really where the power is, but also the responsibility, because it's sometimes what we don't want to face is our brain, when we move from that energetic standpoint to more of the civilized, egoic mind, the masculine, then that's where the brain wants to start to understand things in a way that categorizes things, because it makes more sense. So then that's why we have these labels. That's why we start to say, like, us versus them. Are they more similar to us or not? It's a survival mechanism that we've evolved with to help categorize. And yet that the categorization, which makes us feel safer, also becomes like the shackles with which we end up living our life by, and assuming that there's nothing we can do about it because it becomes our personality. And sometimes it's not bad, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with, like, if you're type A personality or something like that, right? But we all have to be able to, like Brian said, like, see the ground that we're standing on and be able to, like, be in the present moment, ask ourselves if these things are in alignment for what we really want out of this lifetime, because I think that there's a lot of times it's not, but we don't ever create the space to evaluate that. We have to get to know ourselves intimately with curiosity to see where we're getting in our own way, really. And that's something that often we don't talk about a lot in, like, the empowerment, transformation, mental health world. There's a lot of times where we can, like, we want to understand it, and then we stay with, like, the blaming or the external reasons for why we do the things that we are. But really, it is in order to really transform, and that's what we really want for everybody, ourselves, the people that we love, the people that we work with, is reminding us of all the power that we actually do have. And again, with that power does come responsibility, and that means that we have to do the work. And it means trying to do the work with as much compassion for ourselves, understanding that we are human. Part of the human condition is that our brains, our bodies are designed for survival, and they go through this developmental process. So when we understand that, then it's not something to beat ourselves up over. It's just the way that our bodies and our brains responded. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to for survival. But now, once we get to this certain point, kind of like we talked about at the very beginning, when you get to this certain point and you're like, what is this life about? Because you were so busy all these years creating things that fed the ego, that felt the persona, the prefrontal cortex of who we thought that we needed to be. And then all of a sudden you start to feel these glimpses of remembering that there's more to life than the external world. that there's something more, there's a deeper purpose, there's a connection.
So would you say like we lost connection with the feeling? Like when we're in that second stage of development, we're in the play mode. Like you see children, they're in play. They're like, everything's perfect.
Yep, they cry when they want to cry.
Yeah, and they're in the power of now, and they're feeling, and they're and all that, and they're being, they're feeling, and they're being. But then when we develop the self and the ego, we're now coming from our heads and not our hearts. Right. We lose this connection to being and feeling, and then we feel like we have to do and think all the time.
Right.
And that creates the mind, creates the concepts of who we think we are.
Yep.
Which isn't necessarily who we are.
No.
Right.
And then we think that we get glimpses of the feeling when we are maybe like on vacation or having a drink with some buddies or doing something that's kind of removing ourselves out for a little bit. And then we get that glimpse and then we go back into the world. So
how much do we give ourselves a chance just to be and feel?
Yeah.
You know, when we're stuck in our heads all the time and in the world.
Right.
Right.
Right. And there's so many opportunities that we can do that, and we will, talk about that too. But for the sake of this, it's just really understanding that it's fundamental to all of us. That and if you're watching this, or if you've come to some of our events or follow us in any way, then you're on this path, right? Like you clearly know that there's more than just going to work and getting a paycheck and coming home. You can find so much fulfillment in that process for sure, but it's not just about the external world. That there is a world, an infinite potential world within all of us, and that we are starting to remember and wanting as many opportunities to connect with other community members who understand this and are speaking this language, and opportunities to reconnect and to remember that energy body that we all are born with. Yes. The
connection and the feeling.
The wholeness.
Coming back. And that's the hero's journey, where it's like, we come from the unified field. We're still a part of the wholeness, and then we lose the wholeness, come into fragmentation, and realize when we're down here that, all the materialism and all that isn't enough. Excuse me. And we need to somehow get back to the wholeness. And that's where we have the power, where we have the ability to reconstruct ourselves, to reverse engineer, we call it our human story, to recondition and build our neural pathways, not about separation and division. And if fragmentation and division is the problem, wholeness is the solution. Yeah. That's where we come back. If we don't apply that to our lives on a regular basis, we just fall back into that hole. So we consistently teach the importance of daily practice. Sadhana is the yogic terminology for that brings us into wholeness, because now we can reverse engineer that human disease the more we experience wholeness. So we need to get out of the illusion of separation and into wholeness on a regular basis, a daily basis, not through just like a trip to the jungle to do ayahuasca or, a trip somewhere and connecting with nature, or just, a few, episodes here and there, but like consistently with the intention of bringing wholeness into our lives, to replace the separation and division. Now, I want to tell a little bit of a story how I discovered this in my life. Was I grew up 2 blocks away from the ocean as a surfer in California, and I got to surf every day. And it was like the best thing you could ever imagine. But the rest of the world literally lost its meaning to me, because I found all this wholeness and bliss and radiance in the water surfing, right? And so it's in that state that we all search for, right? That connection to something greater, and there's so much in it. But I was building this ego around it. This like, oh, I'm a surfer, right? This is better than anything. Nothing compares to this. So I built my story around being a surfer. And then everything, the rest of my life was miserable. But I had to live in the rest of my life to a point where I couldn't even enjoy surfing. And I graduated from college. And that was when I put the gun in the corner, and I was ready to end my life in that moment. And I went, hell no, it's time to hit the reboot button. And I left the whole story, the surfing and everything, and moved to a farm in South Dakota. And then completely redefined myself, not knowing anything I was doing. I just went into this unknown sort of space. And all of a sudden, I still started feeling that same energy of connection and bliss and radiance not from surfing, but from just being in nature. And after a yoga class, and I just felt that connection. I'm like, well, wait a minute. That wasn't from surfing. You know, what was that? Like, that's coming from it within me. And that's how I reconnected with the wholeness. And I went, this is what I want to understand, is what is it that I am feeling within me that's making me feel ultimately fulfilled. It wasn't from surfing outside of me or anything outside of me. It was from within me.
And that's so true. Like, with anything, when you're chasing a feeling, right? And that's what people say, is it's within us, and we think it's an object or an experience outside of us that put it in there. We didn't eat it, right? You can feel bliss from certain aspects, but the bliss is originating and being felt inside. So when we really understand that, then we can start to understand, like, I can cultivate this sensation at will. By choice, by being intentional with understanding, like, well, what is this sensation? Not labeling it because you're crying and thinking like there's something wrong with me, but allowing it to be expressed. It's the energy and motion that it doesn't, like, we can find bliss in small things. It does not have to be big things. We don't have to wait until Christmas to feel it, right? We can cultivate it, but it is within us. We can find different objects of attention to help us remember that or to activate it, but it's not beyond what's here.
Yeah, and that's why the breath is so powerful, because the breath is literally the tool to coming into that. I mean, it's the power of now. We'll talk about it. The power of now, the meditative mind, the flow state. Those are all the same things. They're all states of wholeness that we really need to learn to come into as individual human beings in order to create a new human story. Because the studies say, you know, and like Joe Dispenza and other people are really big on this, and we are too, that 95% of who we think we are is conditioned response from the past. And that's from that fragmentation and division and the illusion of separation. So your belief in yourself is all from an illusion of separation and division. And that's the Maya, and that's why we're like literally have, you know, so many stresses and disease and all this thing. But the cure for that is the power of now. So that, well, where's that 5%? What does that mean, right? There's still 5% there. No, we've talked about the 5% are states of being in the power of now. And that's, I mean, we all get there. We all, like music. Like, all you have to go say is like, do you ever feel like connection through sound or music? Yes, of course. What else? Gardening, or like runner's high, or any flow state activation. Breath work's so powerful. Yoga, you know, meditation after yoga, savasana. Any of those things are that's that redeveloping. So that's that 5%. Well, we're all about building that 5% out. So the 5% is actually the 95%. And then only 5% is who we think we are, right? And here's another story that really grounded this for me. Was like, I did a yoga class and it was beautiful. It was amazing. And then we're in Shavasana, and it was like, I think I was like the only student there, and I was like fully in bliss. And the teacher, and you know, God bless her, I'm sure she meant the best intention, but she literally played I'm Just a Little Broken. And I went, like, as a yoga teacher, I'm like, I would never play that. Like, do not bring back that memory of like being broken. Are you like, seriously? And so I'm like, wait, I'm not going to judge this. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to bring in I'm Just a Little Broken. And I mean, this is after my whole process of awakening and everything, where like I understood myself on a completely different world. But I went into I'm Just a Little Broken, and it brought me back to being called potato and fatso and all the names I was called and picked on, because I was like, you know, I was potato, right? Like, I was picked on. I grew up in Southern California, and my brothers were in a punk rock band. So like, I would walk through school and I'd be made fun of and beat up and everything. I was bullied like unbelievably. And like, it brought all that emotion back. Like, I was literally broken. That old story came up, and it was like that. It was like instant. I'm like, I was like ripped and torn and just like, this is awful. So like, it takes just the littlest. It's all created up here. Those concepts are still in there. So if we want to remind ourselves and refleshing constantly the brokenness, we can do that. And that's never going to move us beyond the trauma. It's only going to enforce it.
Yeah.
Another way of looking at it that we talk about is like the shadow.
Yeah. Yeah. And how, like, the rearview mirror, like when you're driving, the rearview mirror is this big and the windshield's this big. So that you want to know like what you've come from. Like there's nothing wrong with understanding like why do we approach life in certain ways? Why do maybe I get triggered by this or that? Like it's good to understand it, but it's not good to get attached to it. We really want to be in the present moment. We want to have that flexibility to respond to what's going on in the now and where we want to go, right? With the analogy of driving, like you want to, there's a destination you're trying to get to, but in order to do that, we have to focus on the road now and the conditions that we're driving in now. And so it is good. Yes. Understand that we do come from our past, but that's even an illusion, right? So the past is in a memory. Memory at that point becomes a fragment of our imagination. And a lot of times the memory that we have of things, like we've tainted and colored and redefined what actually happened. So the objectivity of life events that we've gone through might not be as they really were at the time. So even that, it's not the illusion. I'm saying is more just like that's the imagination. So when we think about the past a lot, or we decide that it's like who we are as a construct of that's in our imagination. And we think about the future, like that's also in our imagination. So collapsing time from a quantum mechanics type perspective is really where are we going to focus? And let's focus on the here and now. And then that's going to get us where we want to be. And also though, based on the conditions that we're presented with as we're driving in the present moment, we might decide we don't want to go, like if our destination was Chicago, we might just get on the road and then it takes us a whole different way if we're able to be fluid and flexible with responding in the moment to whatever life circumstances there are. Maybe there's a tornado hitting Chicago and you would rather go to Kansas City. I don't know. Those are probably not destinations most people are going to go to, but so being able to just be in the present moment and, listening to those internal cues about what's going on. And that's really where we invite more possibilities into our life. That's not just like, no, this is just what we do. This is just where I go.
This is just who I am.
Just who I am.
That's who I am, and that's it. And that's the passes. Yeah. The shadow is there to remind us, but the windshield is the direction. And we say, just keep the arrow pointing up is really where it's at. And a lot of stuff with this work, and we'll probably bring it up again, is like, overemphasis on the shadow or overemphasis on the light. Like too much love and light, or too much shadow is too unbalanced. We want to be sort of right in the middle. And what it comes down to it is the neutral mind, the meditative mind is sort of right in the balance point between, we don't want to say like, oh, I'm above and beyond that now. Like, then you'll never learn your lessons from what we need to learn, right? We're never above and beyond anything we experience in our life. They're all there for that reason. Right.
To learn and to grow. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Our soul chose this body for a reason. It chose our human experience for a reason, to give it the best opportunity to grow. But we're never above the human condition or this experience either. It's life school.
And the shadow work is important. So that means like understanding maybe some of the things that have happened in our life, so that we can grow from it. There are certain things that might need to be witnessed and felt to be released. And so that is an important thing. If we are cutting ourselves off from those experiences or those things, then we're not fully integrated. We're not going to be fully integrated as a human being. We miss opportunities for learning and evolving. So that's why it's important. It's not just love and light, I forgive everybody no matter what, right? Well, that's not... Like there's a process. Follow the process and maybe you get there. But if you're just like, no, I'm spiritual now. I'm not going to entertain any of this. Like, well, we're also here with other people, and there's going to be conflict, and conflict's not bad. We can grow and evolve from that. We just have to show up for it. So it can be in the present moment conflict. It can be conflict from our past. It can be hardships from our past, but being able to witness those things grows our capacity for understanding our own strength and being able to handle conflict when it comes up in the now, in the perpetual now.
And we call that alchemy.
Yep.
You know, alchemy is seeing your challenges as opportunities for growth, whether they're in the past or you're facing them now. If we take on that mindset of we're constantly seeing our challenges as opportunities for growth, we've like flipped the script on life. So we've taken that human condition and that illusion of separation and the disease it creates, and we flipped the script. Now we're empowered. Now we are more in the power of now, more accepting, more radically accepting what is, and we can alchemize our challenges to make us stronger. And that's the whole point of our soul's growth. That's why our soul chose our body, is to become alchemists, to see our challenges as opportunities to grow so we can continue to evolve the evolution of consciousness within ourselves, which also reflects the evolution of consciousness everywhere else. Sort of like sum it all up, like we're a species born into division and separation. Well, we evolve into it, and we need to come back into wholeness. Like, you know, there's too much fragmentation and division in our world. There's too much fragmentation and division in ourselves, but we can find the wholeness within ourselves to be sort of like taking that next step in our human evolution. That awareness is huge, knowing that it's always there. Bliss is the breath away. We can always connect with the breath, right? And so we have a little, like one of our favorite, like as breathwork facilitators, and we're certified in like Wim Hof and Oxygen Advantage and shamanic breathing and yoga and all this. But really, what's one of our favorite tools that we use for the breath?
Just focusing on the breath.
Just focusing on the breath. And we call it clearing the calculator, because the mind's kind of going, it is a calculator. It's constantly running and life, working and calculating. And it's like hitting the clear button on the calculator. And when we're in the sort of monkey mind, that's a certain brainwave state. That's beta waves. So we're in the monkey mind, but we need that sort of thinking to navigate the world. But if we're stuck in that state, we're stuck in a stress response. We're stuck in the past or the future, and we're constantly trying to find the center.
So if we can just push pause, right? And you closing your eyes benefits is just going to help. You don't have to though. But just coming to the breath allows us to shift from the beta brainwave to more of an alpha, more of a relaxed state. If you can even add like the sensation of love, so like thinking about something that you have love for, like a family member, a pet, an experience, then you're also embodying or tapping into your heart wisdom as well. So that's kind of like a heart math thing where it's you're tapping in. That's the power of breathing and believing, right? It's just taking a second to just breathe, come back to the breath. That clears the calculator. That shifts like all that running going on, brainwaves, all that stuff, and just like a moment of pause and reflection so that you can be present and you can go shift from a state of just constantly reacting throughout the day to responding and being so much more intentional. And really this is about living an intentional life. Everything that we talk about. Intentionality is acting from higher consciousness. And so this is just small moments throughout the day of clearing the calculator might seem so simple, and it's life-changing. And that's why we love teaching breathing and believing, because it's all it takes. It's
the baby steps. And this is the first step to creating more wholeness in our lives, right? Becoming more whole beings, right? Creating a story around wholeness rather than fragmentation. So for the next week or so, or for the rest of your life, really, but really focus on it for the next week. Anything your mind starts to unravel, or you get sort of in that chaos or that monkey mind and you need balance and you need to come back to center, focus on what's been there since the time you were born. Your breath brings you the gift of life. It literally is with you every step of the way, and we forget about it. And so just focus on the breath. So let's do that. Right? So you can close your eyes. And it's not even really focusing on the breath. It's bringing all our attention to the breath so that our awareness literally becomes the breath. So breathing in through the nose. Slowly release the breath. Slowing it down. Bring all your attention to the breath, to the power of now. Fully connecting with the breath. Slowing it down. And always on an inhale, we open our eyes because the inhale brings us back up. And feel how nice that is. The power of now, the meditative mind, we get deeper into the healing process through wholeness and how to connect in so many ways in our lives to reverse engineer the human disease and create more wholeness in our worlds. To complete that hero's journey, I mean, in a sense, we just did. Knowingly, when you knowingly go through that, you're in that monkey mind and you intentionally bring yourself back into wholeness. Every time you do that, you're building a new neural pathway. That neural pathway towards wholeness. So you're seeding the wholeness and you're growing the wholeness every time you take that intentional step of coming to your breath.
Perfect.
So it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it, really.
Yeah, we're done and we're not done.
But thank you so much for joining us. It's a YouTube thing. Hit a like or a share or whatever. We just really started getting into this.
Yeah.
Truly,
so like pretend that we're
gonna...
saying right now what other people say at the end of YouTube videos.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, share on your other social media. Like, yeah.
And if you like this video, watch this video.
Leave your comments below.
God, yes. Yeah.
And remember to breathe and believe. Right? Bliss is only a breath away.
Drums beat wild beneath the moon. Echoes rise in a primal tune.